Well, I'm Lady Charmaine, and my guest today is the Senior Director of Programming and Production at TV One, where he oversees reality hits like R&B divas, Unsung, and the Stellar Awards. He is also the man behind On the Helm of one of the highest-rated original films in the network history, Love Under New Management, The Miki Howard Story. And he's here today to talk about the 10th season of TV One's Unsung. Help me welcome back to the Lady Charmaine live show, Jubba Seyyid. Welcome back, Jubba.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it was good to have you back on the show. Now, remember, I sent you a message letting you know I saw your cameo in A Love Under New Management. It was real quick, but I was able to catch you.
Yeah, I popped in real quick. That was a lot of fun. The circumstances behind that little pop-in was funny. It was essentially one of our extras had gotten sick, and they didn't have a replacement, and apparently I was already dressed for the part.
Well, that was perfect.
Exactly. Timing was everything in that situation, so I was happy to do it.
So normally you're the man behind the scenes, and you were perfect for front of the scenes. Do we plan on seeing any more cameos of Jubba in the near future?
Not that's on the docket. We'll have to see if another surprise happens.
Okay. Well, I want to ask you, the story was such a great story. It was beautifully told. Why was sharing the Miki Howard story so important to you and the network?
Well, when we first came up with the idea of taking what we do with Unsung and creating, these amazing stories that exist, that we knew they existed. We've done over 100 shows. We celebrated that early last year. So we had all of this content, all these stories. And the head of the network, the programming department, D'Angelo Proctor, thought that this would be a great source of storytelling for our film. So now that was the birth of Unsung Films. And with any good film, you want a great story, someone to overcome some issues and then triumph at the end. And Miki Howard's story was the perfect story to tell first. It was sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and that's what sells out the gate. And her life was so complex and so complicated and so fun and so sad that that it was a well that we could tap, and I think the audience sort of felt something that they could relate to. There's nothing about her story that a lot of our community and even outside of our community, those stories that they could relate to. And she had an amazing life, and she's still out here doing the damn thing. So I've got to know Miki pretty well. I love her, and she was also that artist that was willing to tell her story, as we say, warts and all. She did not hold back anything, and
she didn't.
Starting with her,
she didn't. It was so beautifully told, and it gave me even more respect for what she had gone through. Even her relationship with Gerald, didn't know about that, and how she warned Gerald, and I mean, just everything, because I just thought they just sang together. I really didn't know that they had even dated, so it just,
story.
Yeah, and it really was. It really was. So well done. So the 10th season of Unsung kicks off next Wednesday. Tell us the definition behind Unsung, and why was that title so important to add it to a show like this?
Well, Unsung's definition has changed over the years. I think when the show was created, it was created with the idea that we wanted to tell these stories of folks whose music we'd heard here and there, but we don't really know anything about them, or whatever happened to that group that did X, Y, or Z.
Right.
Whatever happened to that artist that did X, Y, or Z. That's how it was created. What we found right away was that as the network was growing, as the audience was growing, we realized right away that even some of our bigger artists that represented soul and R&B and funk and hip hop, it wasn't that they were necessarily unsung in the traditional definition of the word. It was that their stories had never been told, and there was no platform for them to tell their stories.
Right.
So now TV One became a great platform to tell their stories. So it's really about untold stories of our artists from this community, whether it be soul, funk, gospel, hip hop, R&B. This is a place where those artists' stories are going to be told, where you're going to find out things you didn't know about, and you're gonna hear the music from as early as your childhood as soon as 10 years ago. I mean, some of these artists are still pounding the pavement and making new music, and so we always want to lead with, this is not about your life is over, you're unsung that way. No, it is really about, we are a vehicle to tell a story where no one else was going to tell it, and TV One has been that place for us, for artists who've appeared on Unsung.
Now, I know you get so many names submitted to you. How do you go about selecting who's going to be featured on the show?
So we have a huge bank of names of artists, whether they be groups or solo artists in different genres, male, female. And what we do is collaborate with our research department. We look at what shows have been the most successful in the past. We look at female artists have been successful, male artists, groups, duos, and we look at all of that. So it's really a group effort between our department here in programming, and then we deal directly with scheduling, and then our research department, and we collaborate. And then we combine that with who the producers, A. Smith is the production company that has been producing this from the start. A group of really talented, intellectual, and really smart people. And they come to me with stories and say, we got to do this person, we got to do that person. They're great. So then we take those names, I put them through the filter through our research department. They come back with their information, and then we sit and go through name by name and look at our research and look at who we know in our gut our audience will like, and we try to come up with the names from there. So it is a process, and it's a filter that we put every name through, and that's how we come up with the names. And then when you see them in a season like the upcoming season, we try to pair R&B with soul and hip-hop, so folks who might have been pre-1980 with folks who are post-1990. And you just want to get a good mix of artists so that you satisfy the palate of a lot of the viewers.
Well, I got a name for you, Ready for the World. I would love to hear their story.
Ready for the World. Can you sing what's the first song that comes to mind when you think of Ready for the World?
Oh, Sheila. Ow, ow, ow. See, don't mess with me now. Tonight. Digital
They're in our wheelhouse. Look at you. You are a fan. Do you know them? They're your cousin.
See. I'm a big Ready for the World fan. So, yes. And you know what? Even the Jones Girls. I always wanted to know what happened to the Jones Girls.
So both have been on our list. I honestly don't remember what the holdup is for Ready of the World, but the Jones Girls is a great example of your first question. So as much as they've got great hits, and there are certainly a lot of our audience out there who certainly would like to know more about them, when we do our research, during those particular research moments, because sometimes we will retest, the latest test didn't give us the best number in terms of who the audience wanted to see first. So there are a lot of names ahead of the Jones Girls right now. But Ready for the World is certainly on our short list, and it just depends on the artist sometimes about how eager they are willing to do the show. Because once we decide we want them, doesn't necessarily mean they want to do it, because sometimes they're on the road, sometimes there's fear of telling their full story, but that is part of the deal here. We want you to be able to utilize Unsung as a place where you feel comfortable telling your full, unedited story.
Now, I'm not sure how true this is, but some people say, or I heard that once somebody went on TV One's Unsung, their career tanks. Is that true?
Absolutely not.
That's what I thought.
It's the opposite. It's the opposite. I think if you ask anyone even the ones who are reluctant to do it, watch what happens to the amount of money they're starting to make on those cruise ships that we used to work on, or those clubs they were going into and getting $1,000. Now they're getting $10,000. They're doubling their fees now, because not only is Unsung popular on TV One, but it has spread internationally. So a lot of these artists who still toured, they're watching their fees go up because they did appear on Unsung. I've never heard, I've heard rumors of such, but the reality is these artists are always thankful, even the ones that complain about it in the beginning because they were afraid to tell sort of the dirt or the warts and all part of their story. But generally, there's always an uptick in that person's sales in the old albums even, and in their fees as they continue to tour around the world.
See, that's good to know, because that's what I thought. It's like once I see their story, it makes me even more interested in them once I see the story on Unsung. And then I want to ask you, the show has been popular for 10 seasons. What is the secret behind the success? Because it's a very successful franchise.
I think if you ask most of us that work on Unsung, we would tell you that there's a visceral reaction to music from our past. You remember, the first time you fell in love. You remember where you were when Roller Coaster came on the radio. You remember, the Fat Boys' first music video and what you were doing as a teenager or as a 12-year-old. You know what I mean? So I think with depending on the type of music it is, there's something that connects to you viscerally. And that's what music does. And I think when you start to put images to that sound, and you get to hear the stories of artists that you either respected or were curious about, or even the ones that you didn't even like so much. Once you get to hear their story, you know what I mean? I think people continue to come in and tune in for that experience. I mean, there's certainly been artists on our that we've done on Unsung that I wasn't necessarily a fan of, but after I got to hear their story and hear how they work and hear what they went through, I certainly became a fan overnight. So I think there are a lot of artists that fit into that category. Okay.
Before we go into season 10, I want to find out which one has been your most popular Unsung episode thus far.
So thus far, our highest rated episode has been Escape.
Really?
Yes, I know. A lot of people are surprised to hear that, but surprisingly, and I was surprised as well. Not that it did well, but that it became the highest rated show, and that was because Escapes had in the zeitgeist of the R&B community, there were a lot of unanswered questions. There were a lot of rumors. There was infighting, and apparently the fans were really interested in finding out what was going on. Also, you had Tiny, who has a TV show out, so she had a lot of fans on her show that I'm sure were brought to the network to watch what happened with her story. And then and then you have the Atlanta Housewife experience with
Candy.
Excuse me, with Candy. But those names were in the zeitgeist already. They were, and everyone was aware of the beef that existed. So when we put it on air, the fans flocked to it. That's how we explained it became the highest rated episode in Unsung history.
Okay, now season 10 kicks off next week, and it's going to be kicking off with the girl group SWV. Why were they such a good group and a good fit to kick off the very first episode?
Well, Jess, it's so funny. There's a great segue coming from Escape to SWV, where we have very similar issues. One was probably more New York and hip, and the other from Atlanta. So the girls of SWV coming together from the Bronx and having extreme success at a young age, and then it all kind of falling apart. And I don't want to give away too much, but you're going to find out what the beef was about. You're going to find out that they're, this isn't giving too much away, but that they're back together, and why are they back together? So you'll get a lot of those those questions answered. But the sad part is that a lot of the music industry, a lot of the artists who've gone through the music industry and dealt with management and labels, they have a lot of the same stories. They're just getting to the business young. They don't understand contracts. They don't understand what they're signing on the dotted line, and that's where the trouble begins. And then that's where infighting begins. And who wants to be the lead singer when it comes to these groups of women, and who's going to get more shine? And I think jealousy and envy and all of the 7 deadly sins come into play whenever you got fame on the line and money on the line. And I think we've always wanted to do SWV. We've always wanted to do Escape and Total and those kinds of groups. So those are the kinds of groups that have we know that there's a thirst from our audience for them, and whenever we get the green light to do it, I'm always jumping for joy, because I think we're looking forward to seeing the audience tune in for SWV. The story is amazing. The music's amazing. It's going to take you back. It's that nostalgic feeling. This is the reason why we do Unsung.
Now, I must admit, I did get a chance to see the episode last week. It was sent to me. Great story, told very good from both sides, dealing with the situations with Coco and leading in her mom. I was like, I didn't know all that was happening up in there with the group. So for those of you, make sure you check out the very first episode. And then what I believe was it Tosh, who said something about doing the television show, where she said she wished she wouldn't have done it. The reality show. I was really surprised to hear that. So it's a great way to kick off season 10. So I had to put that plug up in there. And but
absolutely.
yeah, but Jubba, before we go, how do you go about picking the people who are going to be featured on the show, telling some of their stories? Like Kelly Rowland, Belle Biv DeVoe will be sharing their stories about SWV. Do you pick them, or do they choose those people?
Well, after we do the initial research on a particular artist, they generally share who are close in their lives, whether it be family members, other artists. And so in this particular season, I'm really proud of the fact that we got a lot of familiar faces sort of speaking on behalf of these artists. Like you mentioned, Kelly Rowland and Belle Biv DeVoe for SWV, Fat Joe, there's 50 Cent, Remy Ma, and DJ Khaled. I mean, these are people that are close to the artists that can speak directly to the personal and the business aspects of their lives. And I think what the producers always try to do, and what we ask of them, is to put familiar faces behind it so that it legitimizes and authenticates the stories that are being told, because people like to hear from people they recognize and that they know speaking on behalf of these artists. And so whenever we can get a huge name to back the artist that we're featuring, that's just cherry on top of a great story.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to everyone watching it kicking off next week, January 4th, which is a Wednesday. If you can't watch it live, make sure you DVR, because this is a story that you don't want to miss. It's on TV1, Unsung, one of my favorite shows, kicking off 10 seasons. Congratulations, Jubba and the entire team. Great show, and the network is doing great things. You have some really good programming. I'm so proud. I've been watching TV1 since its inception, and you have come a long way. It's a great, great network.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you. We appreciate the listeners, and we hope everyone tunes in for a wonderful season. And if it wasn't for folks like yourself keeping the name out there, keeping Unsung and TV1 in the mouths of everybody, we wouldn't be here. So thank you so much.
You are so welcome. And before we go, I just want to make sure the listeners understand who's going to be on this season. Kicking off SWV, Fat Joe, John B., Lenny Williams Case, Dave Hollister, After 7, and a James Brown tribute you don't want to miss, all coming up in season 10 of Unsung. Thank you so much, Jubba. Thank you for coming back on the show.
Ciao. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You're listening to Sacramento's First Lady, Lady Charmaine, on 97.5.
You're watching a Rich Girl Dreams production.